afternoon. I'm Creeson, Agecoutay. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. The National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations will meet Manitoba's Lieutenant Governor in Winnipeg today. Cindy Woodhouse-Nepanak will be pressing Anita Neville to establish a First Nations-led commission of inquiry into the homicides of 4 Indigenous women in Winnipeg at the hands of a serial killer. The meeting comes on the heels of a resolution passed last week by chiefs across the country at the AFN Annual General Assembly in Montreal. The inquiry would look into the Winnipeg Police's handling of the murders of Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and the yet-to-be-identified Buffalo woman, and into the decision to not search the landfill. Winnipeg police knew the bodies of Harris and Myron were in the Prairie Green landfill north of the city, but told the family it wasn't feasible to search. The inquiry would also look into how the previous Manitoba government reacted. The former Progressive Conservative government campaigned on not searching the landfill. We'll have more for you tonight at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. After being denied funding from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation to build a women's shelter, leaders from Sagkeeng Anishinaabe First Nation, Manitoba are denouncing the decision. Located an hour and a half outside Winnipeg, Sagkeeng has the highest rate of unsolved MMIWG cases in Canada, according to the National Inquiry into Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls. In a press release, Chief E.J. Fontaine said the rejection undermines the National Inquiry's call to action to support community-based services such as shelters for MMIWG2S+. CMHC's allocates $44.8 million for 10 on-reserve shelters across Canada and 2 in the territories, a number Chief Fontaine says is not enough to serve the 634 First Nations across Canada.
You know, we had lots of our women go missing, you know, and what happens is they become in violent and abusive situations, so they reach out to the community for shelter, and we have no place to put them in the community, and so what they do is they migrate to the city to find shelter, and they find out many times that the shelters are full, so what happens is they end up roaming the streets, going into vulnerable situations.
In a written statement to APTN, the CMHC said while they recognize the need for more shelters and transitional homes for Indigenous peoples, they received more applicants than they could fund through the 2 initiatives. This morning, Edmonton Police held a press conference in hopes of getting more information from the public on 23-year-old Nicole Frenchman, who went missing 3 years ago. Frenchman was last seen being dropped off by a taxi at 5 a.m. on July 10th, 2021, in the area of 82nd Avenue and 99th Street in Edmonton. At the time, she was traveling with another woman. Edmonton police say while no remains have been found, they are now investigating her disappearance as a homicide. Police say they believe there are individuals out there who know the circumstances of what happened to her. Anyone with information on Frenchman's disappearance is asked to contact the Edmonton Police or Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. The company behind a cyanide spill at a Yukon mine last month says they can't promise they'll be able to clean it up. As Sarah Connors reports, that has First Nation and environmental groups wondering if the company is facing bankruptcy.
On June 24th, there was a major equipment failure at Victoria Gold's Eagle mine site in north-central Yukon. The failure damaged the mine's heap leach pad, a process used to extract ore and gold, causing cyanide to spill into the environment. On Friday, the company said in a public statement it didn't know if it would be able to restart production or if it could provide the cash needed to fix the site.
The more we learn about this, the sketchier it gets.
The statement has raised eyebrows at Mining Watch Canada, which advocates for responsible mining. The organization says most of the company's money was tied up in the heap leach pile.
They don't have the cash flow, they don't have any other operations, they don't have a lot of reserves, so it wouldn't be at all surprising if they go belly up as a result of this.
The Canadian Parks and Wilderness Society's Yukon branch says it's not a matter of if the mine goes bankrupt, but when. That's because its $104 million security is based on a closure plan, one that doesn't account for a heap leach failure and environmental contamination.
It assumes that the heap leach is going to be there so that they can detoxify the cyanide. The heap leach is destroyed, the pumping system is destroyed. It makes cleanup a lot more complex and a lot more expensive.
We're very disappointed to hear that announcement by Vic Gold.
Chief Donna Hope of the First Nation of Nachonayakdun says she was surprised by the announcement. The mine is located on their traditional territory. But Hope says her First Nation has bigger concerns than Victoria Gold's financial situation. It recently received information that the mine's events ponds are close to being full.
Once they are full, they're going to start overflowing. That is the biggest concern to us. There's impending disasters beyond the disaster that occurred June 24th.
APTN reached out to Victoria Gold for comment. They have yet to respond. Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
Chiefs across the country supported Ontario First Nations' challenge of carbon pricing. It happened in a resolution passed at the Assembly of First Nations meeting in Montreal last week. It appears to fit neatly into Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's playbook. But as Annette Francis reports, it's not that simple.
Last week, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre addressed chiefs from across the country at the Assembly of First Nations meeting in Montreal. A big part of his message is that he will axe the carbon tax if elected Prime Minister.
Axe the tax means cancelling a carbon tax that is making food and groceries more unaffordable for everyone, but especially for First Nations people. Because of the remote and colder weathers that you must confront, this tax is particularly cruel and unjust, and that is why I support the Chiefs of Ontario and their judicial review to counter this unjust tax burden.
The Chiefs of Ontario filed a court challenge last year against the federal government that the carbon tax isn't fairly applied on First Nations. For example, First Nations people often don't file tax returns, so they're not benefiting from the carbon tax rebate. The chiefs in Assembly voted to support a resolution calling on the federal government to stop this kind of discriminatory treatment. According to Regional Chief Abram Benedict, that means cross-country support in their legal battle.
And so we know that a number of our communities, predominantly the ones northern and remote communities, don't file income taxes. And so, and these communities are the ones that are directly impacted the most by having the carbon charge on the fuel that's delivered into their communities. And so, the disadvantage, to our members is a huge part of our action against Canada, and they haven't given any consideration to our communities.
But Grand Chief Benedict said it's not just about axing the tax. Ontario First Nations support a way to address climate change as well.
A number of our remote and northern communities are directly affected by climate change, and so winter roads are not the same. The water is either causing a lot of problem, or there is none. The migration of moose and caribou and of the like has changed because of climate change. So we're definitely supportive of actions that help combat climate change. Now, we're not supportive of a regime that financially disadvantages our communities. So I want to be clear that we need to address climate change across this country, but it can't be at the expense of First Nations. So the axe the tax, right, is fine, but it doesn't mean that we don't need strategies to address climate change.
Benedict says he remains optimistic that the federal government will reverse the tax for First Nations before it goes to court. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
We're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. To read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn and X. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. First Nations and the City of Vancouver have released a 5-year plan to implement the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples on a local level. CTV's Gabriella Pans-Bellatrandy has the story.
Saying this is what their ancestors dreamt of, an action plan to solidify First Nations rights in Vancouver. The city unveiled its 5-year plan today alongside the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nations.
It's about putting our identity back on the map. It's also about the rebuilding of Indigenous economies, and sometimes that comes with understanding of who we are.
Its goal, improve Indigenous people's rights in the city, like affordable housing, providing power and sewage services so homes can be built.
We have over 380 community members that are waiting for a house in our community right now. So working on with the city and helping get those services to our community so that we can build the houses, which will free up housing in other areas.
The action plan also addresses areas like environmental racism and improving First Nations relationships with Vancouver police. It would give First Nations more control over doing business in the city, their education, and native art.
It's almost like having that magic wand and saying, now, you come to us and, we'll share. We've rolled up our sleeves. We've made it clear that that our door is open for business.
The city councillors are committed to the action plan and will vote on whether to adopt it later this month. Gabriella Pans-Bellatrandy, CTV News, Vancouver.
A Manitoba mother does not want to work with Jordan's principal again. That's part 2 of that story when we come back in about 3 minutes. Stay with us. Welcome back. This week we shared the story of a mother from Agecoutay, Ojibwe First Nation, who is cutting ties with the Jordan's Principle program after a negative experience left her and her child stranded at a Winnipeg hospital. Here's APTN Sarah Bettens brings you part 2 of that story.
In the first part of this 2-part series, we heard from Laura Bone, the mother of 4-year-old Jade living with severe health issues. While Jade was receiving treatment at Health Sciences Centre in Winnipeg, Bone says she was left scrambling to find a way to cover her medical expenses after she was allegedly told she was not supposed to be using Jordan's Principle to cover hotel costs.
I just felt lost because I didn't know what to do. It's like, I don't know, I was just trying to be there for her. Like, I just wanted her to get better, and I don't know, it just hurt me that they did that to us.
Both the HSC and Agecoutay and Jordan's Principle offices said they don't deny requests for services. Neither will comment on Bone's specific case due to confidentiality. Today, we investigate what contributed to Bone's troubling experience. We'll learn she and Jade aren't the only family to fall through the cracks in the Jordan's Principle system. In March, Indigenous Services Canada estimated that its Jordan's Principle sector had a backlog of between 40 and 82,000 requests. 2 months earlier, the First Nations Child and Family Caring Society filed a non-compliance motion to the Human Rights Tribunal, claiming Canada is not delivering on Jordan's Principle in a timely manner. Cindy Blackstock, executive director of the society, said in Manitoba, only 18% of individual urgent requests and 6% of urgent group requests are processed on time. She says the backlog in Manitoba is between 8 and 16,000 requests. But the problem goes beyond backlogs. Blackstock said bureaucratic barriers between government departments are common for families trying to access Jordan's Principle.
You'll have them doing what they did to this mom, which is say, you need to figure out if it's covered under First Nations Inuit Health Branch. No. That's not the way it's supposed to work. It is the government department of first contact. They pay for the service and then they figure it out back of house.
In Bone's case, she says she was told to access non-insured health benefits, or NIHB, to cover costs. That put up another barrier while her daughter had pneumonia.
Because I'm so worried about her that I didn't have the time to be trying to run around and look for a place and but I just stood by her bed, cried for a while and looked at her, and then I recall the conversation, and then I thought, okay, well, who's NIHB?
Agecoutay's Jordan's Principle coordinator, Victoria McKay, told APTN that medical transportation, which includes accommodations, is covered under NIHB. She said Jordan's Principle will fill any gaps and will never deny services. In a phone interview, Agecoutay's health director, James Bone, said bureaucrats with the First Nations and Inuit Health Branch, or FNIHB, told Jordan's Principle case managers that accommodations were to be redirected to NIHB.
And Health Canada came in there and from non-insured, and they made a presentation to the case managers and said, this is how it's going to work. Any of your clients going to the city from now on have to access for accommodations, must access through this process from now on, regardless of where you're funded, where you're at in your community.
Ryan Tyndall speaks for Indigenous Services Canada. He confirmed that FNIHB presented on NIHB medical transportation benefits to an Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs Technical Advisory Group in March. He also said that anyone eligible for NIHB coverage could get their help from medical transportation costs as a first step, but they could still receive coverage from Jordan's Principle. Back to Blackstock, she stresses that Jordan's Principle was created to end departmental and jurisdictional disputes over who should provide coverage, disputes that hinder First Nations families from getting care for their children.
One of the worst things that happened to Jordan River Anderson, the founder of Jordan's Principle, is Manitoba and Canada would keep on passing the buck about who should pay, and while that little boy suffered in the hospitals.
Whether Bone's case happened because of departmental disputes or not, she is cutting ties with the program she's relied on for 3 years, refusing to use Jordan's principal to help her daughter. Bone hopes changes are made to prevent other families from going through what she did.
If any of that has happened to anybody else, I know the feeling, and I'm very sorry that you had to go through it. Right, Jade? Because nobody deserves that.
Sierra Bettens, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The Louis Bull tribe in Alberta is celebrating this week with a grand opening of their casino. That story when we come back in less than 3 minutes. On the East Coast, Halifax 19, Charlottetown 24. Anujiwak 10, La Grande River 13. Val d'Or 21, Saguenay 26. Toronto 25, North Bay 21. Sioux Lookout 17, Timmins 24. Puckatawagan 20, God's Lake 18. Brandon 15, Barons River 18. Swift Current 23, Yorkton 18 with sun. Buffalo Narrows 23, Stony Rapids 21. Grand Prairie 22, Fort Chipewyan 22 as well. Lethbridge 25, Edmonton 27. Tofino 13, Kamloops 22 with sun. Prince Rupert 17, Fort Nelson 18 with clouds. Beaver Creek 13, Mayo 10. Norman Wells 20, Wati 22. Inuvik 12, Sax Harbor 3. Baker Lake 18, Chesterfield 9. Iqaluit 4 and Arctic Bay 9. The Louis Bull tribe, about an hour south of Edmonton, recently celebrated the opening of their newest project, the Bear Hills Casino and Travel Resort. APTN's Chris Stewart visited the new location and tells us how it is helping the community.
It's 10 in the morning and the casino is quiet. No sounds from electronic games, from dealers, or from roulette wheels. Not yet. The Bear Hills Casino and Travel Resort doesn't open for another hour. A perfect opportunity to talk to some of the people who work here. The casino opened on June 19th. It still has that new casino smell. Featuring 200 slot machines, 10 table games with poker, blackjack, and roulette, a restaurant and lounge, and a smoking section with state-of-the-art air filters. It's been in the making for years, according to Erica Bolgeroux, the executive director of the Bear Hills Casino Society.
When the idea started, like when there was pen to the paper, it was to help our future generations in everything, like, and not depend on the government, so we can be self-sufficient and have a thriving Cree Nation.
The 2,400-member First Nation also owns a golf course, an RV park, and a Petro-Canada station is being built beside the casino on Highway 2 between Calgary and Edmonton. Erica Bolgeroux says it was important to hire from the community.
We are proud to have 51% of our employees Indigenous and from our nation and from the surrounding nations. And that's one of the goals that we shot for.
Employees like Virgil Bull, who works in maintenance. He's from the Louisville tribe.
It's so awesome to see something like this for my reserve. The things that are finally happening here. Like, this building has been, 30 years in the making? And the fact that I get to work here and it's so new, it's amazing. Like, the building is great. The location is awesome. Our gas bar will be opening soon, so that'll generate for the community as well.
Bull has been here for only 3 weeks since the opening, but he is loving the experience.
Working here is probably one of the better jobs that I've had. Like, I love it here. I get to work with a lot of my family members, which is amazing. I met a lot of new people already. I'm very outgoing, so I know probably almost everybody in the building already by first name basis, which is nice because, like I said, I love it here. I won't quit until they tell me to leave.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, at the Bear Hills Casino and Travel Resort on the Louisville Tribe, Alberta.
Right on, we're all happy for them. Congrats. Florida Panthers Stanley Cup champion Brandon Montour announced he is bringing the Stanley Cup home to Six Nations next week. The 30-year-old defenseman just recently signed a massive 7-year, $50 million contract with the Seattle Kraken. Montour will share the Stanley Cup with the community during an afternoon parade that will start at the Oshwakin Speedway and end at the Six Nations Sports Culture Memorial Arena. Six Nations will also gift Montour with a Leader Award. Montour played 66 games this past season, scoring 8 goals and 25 assists. He has been in the NHL for the past 10 years and also previously played with the Anaheim Ducks and Buffalo Sabres. And that's your midday newscast for this Wednesday, July 17th. We'll be back again in a few hours for your evening APTN National Newscast with more brand new stories we're working on. From everyone here at our HQ in Winnipeg and from our reporters across the country, hi miigwech, masicho. Thank you for watching.